Welcome back to the ThoughtfulTechy Cloud YouTube channel. I am very excited today. I am here with a special guest, Fernando Hönig. Fernando is the CEO and tech founder of StackZone, a startup that aims to help businesses scale by simplifying their environments through automation. Welcome, Fernando.
Hey, how is it going, Greg?
It's going pretty good. So you're based out of London, right, Fernando?
Yeah, I'm outside of London, very close to the Windsor Castle that probably you are very familiar with. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Cool. So from Fernando and I met through LinkedIn, through various communications. And today we're going to talk about Fernando's inspiring story through his obsession with helping businesses scale. So my understanding, Fernando, is you used to kind of work what I would say 9-to-5 jobs. That's kind of, what I've been doing here for the last several years. And a couple years ago, something really inspired you to start your own startup, StackZone.
It's exactly like that. So, I'm 40 years old, so been in this kind of industry for more than 20 now. So, whenever you typically start with your job career, typically it's a 9-to-5 job, and I've been doing that for, I would say, about 15 years. And then during the pandemic, I decided to create something different, to kind of let this entrepreneur animal, get out, and I think is really, really fulfilling.
That's right. Unleash the beast. Cool. Definitely want to dig into that a little bit here soon into the interview, but I'm always fascinated to kind of rewind the clock a little bit and kind of really focus on the genesis of how it all came to be. So I'm just kind of curious, what was your life like as a kid? And when did you kind of know that you kind of had some tech superpowers brewing there?
So, as I mentioned, so I am from Argentina. So I was born in Argentina, and imagine, so it was in the 80s. So, technology wasn't kind of the big thing back then.
That's right.
So probably for the ones, hearing this interview, they're not gonna realize that I was basically fitting modems into PCs. So that was kind of my first job, So there was a single internet provider in the city that I was living, and my job actually was, going in my bicycle or sometimes in a car to, customers and just fitting on the motherboards, the modems, and probably you remember.
Wow.
Some people might not remember and never know about the beep, 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 beep noise of the modem.
Yeah, I definitely remember the modems. Just out of curiosity, what were the speeds you were installing back there? Were they like 1200 baud or
14.4? So that was kind of at some point, there was the 56 or 33.6 and 56K was, wow, look at that. This is, flowing is, the internet was really, really a good thing back then.
Yeah, I think modems topped out. I think it was like 56.6K, and I think it was a limitation of the landline itself, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, and then it became the ADSL, the DSL, in more popular,
Okay.
But after that, I was kind of a customer support rep, picking the phone and just making sure that people were, installing it right and navigating to websites right. So I kind of started like that, and then I moved to the center of the country in Argentina, where I started my first startup, which was a hosting company. So I was building racks and building servers and hosting many websites, coding websites with PHP, So it was kind of a progression from there.
Nice. How old were you when you were doing that? Was it like teenage years or like early 20s?
It was early 20s. If I remember correctly, it was 21, 22 when I started doing that,
Okay.
There was no Facebook, Netflix. There was no Uber, or that things like that. So there was no AWS at that point. So
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, when we get all this great technology and we get so used to it, it's hard to go back in time to even figure out how did we even survive, what I mean?
Well,
But somehow
yeah,
we
I
did. Yeah,
mean, yeah, no smartphones. So when when I try to tell my kids that at that point, 4K wasn't a thing. It was all pixels everywhere. And Mario Bros was like that tiny little console that we were playing with. They don't
that's right.
understand that. And it was not 50 years ago. It was 10, 12 years ago. It wasn't a long time ago.
Yeah, you bring about a great point because I've noticed in my own kind of observations the trajectory of pace of innovation.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of fairly linear for several years, but now I think with the advent of cloud, I mean, it's like a hockey stick in many industries across the board. So it's really fascinating to watch.
Yeah. It's really interesting how things changed in the last 10 years. So, and you can see this exponential growth on innovation, as you just mentioned. And I think it's a great kind of an era to live in, and I don't know my kids will realize that, 15 years ago, there was no kind of um, 4K, 8K, etc. It wasn't like that life before.
Yeah, it seems like every generation kind of goes back and tells their kids kind of the same thing. Because I would say, you know, back when I was growing up, the Atari and it was out and stuff. So I
Yeah,
could probably remember my parents saying we didn't have an Atari when I was growing up. But now you go
yeah.
back and look at the Atari and it's like this archaic, rectangular block. This is wasn't any GPUs or metaverse or 3D rendering.
Yeah, exactly. And then I basically joined typical blue chip companies and Argentina, and that's when I kind of started kind of my cloud journey, and
Oh,
started
that's cool.
experiencing with cloud. And so for me, it was that move from building servers, going to a data center and racking, cabling things, to then write a 10 lines of code script, and then boom, that creates machines on the fly. So it was kind of a revolutionary moment, that definitely changed the way that I was working back in, when was it, 2012, 2011.
That's great. One thing I kind of wanted to just double click on because a lot of the folks that kind of watch here would want to know, how do you overcome some of the challenges historically? When you were either when you were back in Argentina trying to launch the, doing the installation of the modems or doing the customer support. How do you kind of respond when you hit a hurdle? Just kind of curious there.
I mean, you need to understand that back in the days, there were a few people in Latin America who were speaking English, and there was no kind of documentation in another language. The typical IT language, is English, or at
That's
least it
right.
was English. There were no kind of translations for that. So I was very fortunate that I went to the private English lessons, and that I think helped me to kind of absorb all that knowledge, and always trying to be kind of ahead of the curve in terms of things that were releasing, different companies. So I remember installing my first Linux distribution, following a kind of a book like this, reading SUSE installation, and
Yeah.
trying to compile kernels and things like that. And I was kind of a 16, 17 years old when doing that, So it always was around trying to see what's new, what's coming, and trying to experiment. And I think, this new cloud era of which says go and build, create your own stuff, make mistakes, and do it again. Learn from mistakes. And I think it was kind of always part of my DNA. And I'm not kind of ashamed to say that I broke databases in production. I just shut down servers in production. I just made mistakes building servers, and I had a sometimes hefty cloud bills, because I forgot to shut down something. It's part
Yes.
of the experience, and I think is very important when you learn from mistakes, So yeah.
That's really awesome. I see a couple qualities that really stand out, especially, as I talk to many tech founders. One, there's a very strong learn and curious sense there. And then there's also the, the not being afraid to fail, seems like it's definitely served you very well.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
So I was kind of reading your bio, and you transitioned from Argentina to London. So I'm curious about that inflection point, where opportunity met preparation, as I'll call it. What kind of
Yeah.
sparked the transition to London?
It was a bit of a kind of a challenge, So imagine that you're living in a country where you speak the language, where you have a good job, and then eventually, some opportunity comes up and say, hey, we want you here in the next within the next 45 days, because it was like that,
Oh, wow.
basically I had to grab tickets. I had to come with my family. I was married and had one kid by then. um we had to kind of sell everything that we had back in Argentina, and come to the UK, to London, and start a new life, because one thing is like, sorry, having a one call sometimes in English, another thing is just living in English,
That's
and,
right.
and I think it was a great experience, being here for the past almost 10 years now. So it's been a great experience to kind of shift, from that sort of space where you're comfortable, and experience something completely new, and kind of have this sort of a new experience of dealing with new situations, talking to people in non native language, for me, so it was really challenging and fulfilling, as I said.
That's right. Yeah, I always grew up with the saying, opportunity seldom knocks twice. So I can imagine you were probably torn to leave, your home and roots there. But it definitely sounds like it was an opportunity that was too good to pass up, and been there for 10 years. So things sound like they've worked out well.
Yeah, it did, indeed.
Nice. So let's kind of transition to, when you were in London, and talk about, you know, some of the corporate experience in the context of how that would later shape you and serve as input into, launching your own startup.
Yeah, so one of the things that I always kind of loved, I'll say, it's not like, it's more like loved, is making things right, and making things right for the right purpose. So, as I said, from the beginning, when I was doing this kind of a customer support role back in the 2000 or 1999, then transition into a more kind of a lead engineer role, and then when came to the UK and leading a DevOps team here, was always about what's right for the customer. Sometimes, I used to work for these companies where, no, we need to sell, we need to sell, we need to sell. Actually, no. I mean, we need to do it what's right for them at this
Yes,
point, and then they'll trust you, and they will buy whatever you want to sell. But first, you need to show them that you're empathizing with them. That you are putting the right kind of nuts and bolts in the right place for them. You know, um,
absolutely.
so when going to this kind of a corporate world where it's all about money, a kind of a experience that no, I mean, probably this is not what I'm good at. I'm not good at selling for the sake of it. It's more about making sure that we don't repeat things. We don't have to come twice here for the same reason. It's kind of on a work ethic environment, it's not good, so that's basically what kind of drove my kind of passion and desire to build something that customers are able to do it once with a couple of clicks, and that's it. They set it up for some time, and we don't have to charge customers for doing the same thing twice. It's kind of unethical in my point of view.
Exactly. Yeah, that was beautifully said. I'm getting goosebumps on my arms here because I really like your sense of empathizing with your customers, and you had some of those not so great experiences in the corporate world where the company, the enterprise is like driving you to, hit these numbers, hit these goals, and trying to piece it together. But I really like your sense of working backwards from fulfilling the needs of the customer and being empathetic to their concerns, and then using that as input to develop a product which helps those customers deliver their business outcomes.
Correct. And again, it's all about trust. So when a customer trusts you because you are understanding what position they are, in which state of their journey they are, it's very, very for them is they kind of feel that you're part of their business, that you want them to be successful, and that's what I feel. That if I make them successful, they will come back and ask me for more help or for more advice. And that is essentially what we're looking and what we're doing here at StackZone.
That's absolutely right. Now, we've kind of transitioned through the early days, childhood, the early 20s, kind of blasted through corporate life. Now, when does it hit you? All the culmination of all your life experiences, when does it hit you one day you wake up and you're like, you know what? I think I'm gonna launch a startup. Take us to that moment.
So for me, it was more around the pandemic kind of lockdown. So I don't know how you call it in the US. We call it lockdown here.
Lockdown, yes.
So imagine that one day someone on the news or television, whatever, says, from tomorrow you cannot get out. It was kind of what? Okay. And at the beginning, what you think is, oh, amazing, I'll have some holidays. Yeah, okay, well, 1 day,
Yeah.
2 days, 3 days, and there is no more TV shows to watch. So okay, so what am I going to do now? And if you are used to kind of a very fast-paced environment where you need to achieve something on a daily basis, which is kind of what I feel every day,
Yes.
it's something kind of start itching, and you say, okay, I need to do something. And basically, I look back and said, okay, what is the thing that I'm doing on every single job that I go? Every time I was doing exactly the same, with a little bit of tweaks here, tweaks there, but I feel the organizations need now a simple way to manage what they put in the cloud. So it's
Absolutely.
like, okay, I have this box of Legos, and
Lots of
it's like
Legos.
someone
Lots
is,
of Legos. Yeah.
it's someone just, turn the box around and say, okay, go and build. Oh, right. So we have, squares, we have rectangles here, and we have this little piece. Oh, this is red, and this is brown, and this is green. All right, how do I make a house out of this? How do I make sure that this house is not going to fall over when I put the next piece on? So essentially, what I thought was, okay, how can we make some sort of pre-built plans where people can, oh, this is what I need. This is the type of house that I want. Okay, and these are the pieces that I need. These are the Lego pieces that I need to build this house. Or even more, you know what? There is a pre-built house here, and you can put a little bit of, a a garden on the front, you can put a red door, you can put a two windows on, So that is kind of in a nutshell what I thought when I said, I can build this, I can create a platform where organizations can quickly adopt cloud, making sure security and governance is part of that,
Absolutely. So I guess if you had to sum it up, you had been working with many customers. Many customers are looking to do the same thing, but every time they go to do it, everyone is starting with a huge bucket of Legos and struggling to put it all together. You zoomed out, taking a 10,000-foot view and saw, wait a second, I can automate these things, develop reference architectures, and then help your customers stamp these things out at scale, thus removing that undifferentiated heavy lifting of having to put individual Lego blocks together.
And it's not only to small customers, because this is happening at a big scale with enterprises.
Yes.
The main issue with enterprises is time and money. They spend tons of money and a lot of time trying to figure it out something where at some point they say, I think this is the way that we can do it. And that's too late, because technology, as we spoke before, changes so dramatically in, 2 years' time that it's too late. What you've been planning to do in 2 years, during the last 2 years, it's not good now, So you lost a huge opportunity to be ahead of your competitors and build something, just because of the bureaucracy of we build it in red or in green. We put a column here, or we put a rack here. So basically, what we're trying to do with StackZone, and that's why we're very successful, is to have these sort of blueprints that allow organizations to adopt these blueprints, and in less than a couple of hours, you have it built it, and you can start fresh. You can start from scratch. You can potentially bring your accounts and kind of apply these guardrails in order to, put it back to where it belongs,
Excellent. So let's just dive just slightly deeper. I'd like to know who is, StackZone's ideal customer, and walk me through some of the specifics based on, what type of customer I am and what I can look for StackZone to solve for me, I guess specifically in the context of my AWS cloud environments.
Okay. So again, typical customers here range from, small to medium businesses to kind of mid-sized enterprises, and these typical customers are customers who are just starting their cloud migration, and they see these as an opportunity to make it right. So you have kind of two types of customers here: the ones that rush to be in the cloud, and they did it some mistakes, but it's too late to fix it. So we need to continue. And the problem with that is that it starts kind of building those problems, and at some point everything crashes. Then you have the other type of customers who are cloud native customers. They were born in the cloud. They started with a number of developers who started building things. And the problem with that is we started with a dev account, and then it was too late to create another one. So we just, copy paste the environment, and now it's production, and we have dev and prod in the same account. And actually we cannot split the permissions. So okay, a developer has access to both, and we just use a credentials file or some sort of environment variables file, and oops, at some point I forgot to switch from dev to prod or prod to dev, and I just dropped my database, that kind of thing. Oops. So exactly. So these kind of mistakes is what we we aim to avoid by adopting this kind of a multi-account strategy, and the typical multi-account strategy misconception is, oh, but that's going to cost me twice much or 3 times more, 4 times more, and that's not true, because what we want with this kind of a multi-account strategy is that you have accounts for the different projects, eventually potentially different environments, and then you have kind of a separation of duties, accounts for a specific duty, an account for security, an account for shared services, an account for networking, etc., etc. And what basically allows you this is to make sure that if something happens in one account, it's not going to happen in another one.
That's right.
Customers who are looking for this sort of compliance, is typically the customers who are more towards adopting StackZone. And when I say compliance, I'm not saying only, SOC, PCI, ISO 27001. I'm just saying best practices compliant. So making sure that your resources are backed up, making sure that are encrypted, making sure that your are not public, so you don't have any S3 bucket public, you don't have any RDS public. They have some deletion protection, making sure that your load balancers cannot be accidentally deleted, that your EC2 instances are going to be spun up on the right region, that your IAM users have MFA, they have a password policy, that sort of things that for the ones who live and breathe, cloud every day, it's something common, Obviously, I'm not going to create, a user with, password 1234. Yes.
Exactly.
But remember that not everyone lives and breathes this, and that is where, right. You sometimes need kind of a helping hand, and that is what we are providing here on an automated way, of course.
That's right. Yeah. So you just really gave a lot of insight and wisdom there. As a solutions architect working with AWS with many different customers on a regular basis, when you start with what I call a vanilla AWS account, so that's just you fire up an AWS account, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And based on what you've told me, StackZone really not only does it just set up your landing zone, right out of the box, but you're also putting in guardrails. You also have, the blueprints that are aligning to certain compliance requirements, and these are all automated, right?
It's fully automated, so from the moment that you create an account at StackZone and then do the wizard, which is 6 steps, and then building the pipeline to create all the accounts and all the governance and security controls, it could take from potentially 2 hours to 6 hours, depending on the blueprint that you select. But most importantly is this is going to be for your existing accounts. What about a new account? So, okay, I have a new project, I have a new environment. So how long it will take for you to configure all of that in a new account? The only thing you have to do is just click Add Account, add it to StackZone, and automatically it will set up everything the same way that is set up on the other accounts that you're.
Oh, wow. So this is almost
no
like yes.
human intervention, So the point here is that reducing human error. We all are human. I explain myself that, I drop databases, I deleted instances, etc. So how can we avoid that? How can we make sure that every single, CloudWatch alarm that we set up is set up in the same way in every single account that we create? So all these silly mistakes that we can make because someone called me or because, I'm going to go and grab a coffee, and when I'm back, which step it was, setting up the alarm or setting up the threshold,
That's right.
So that doesn't happen with automation. And that's the beauty of it, It's kind of a robot doing the work for us. And that's kind of everyone's dream,
Yeah. And what's really so awesome is that when you automate, things go faster, Well, what's counterintuitive, typically when humans go faster, that's when more mistakes happen. So with the StackZone's products, now we're automating and we're going faster, but we're not making mistakes because everything is scripted out. So I can take an account
Correct.
that's just like I want it and then stamp it out to another account. So I'm following best practices according to what my organization has deemed to be, 2 thumbs up.
And is exactly. And one of the things here is that what you are actually building here is let's say a cocoon, so you're setting up these sort of control points, that your organization says, we need to make sure that these are the instances allowed in this organization. So we don't want any, let's say T2 instances, we need T3 only. Okay, perfect. So you define that, so no one is going to go and create a T2 because it's going to, give you an API error because you are not allowed to do it. Or you have compliance requirements that your data cannot live outside of the US. So how do you make sure that that's kind of enforced, and all those, again, little things, that start adding up. And then at the end of the day, you have data in Europe that you cannot have. You have instances everywhere that your buckets are public and your password policy is not correct. And then suddenly, someone says, oh, next week is coming the auditor. What? Yeah, I mean, it's coming to see that we have
Yeah.
everything right. Actually,
Not a good feeling.
we don't.
The auditors,
Yeah,
the auditors are coming.
yeah, exactly, So in order to kind of avoid that sort of feeling that you just said, is, okay, we need to have this, like a checklist, And what StackZone does is that checklist can be done with toggles, I enable this, I enable this, I enable this, I enable that, and that's it, automatically will remediate what you have wrong. And if you have to create a new account, it will just, push all those policies and controls over the new account that you create.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. Not only are we setting up net new accounts, but as even for existing customers that have AWS accounts, now we can use this to employ guardrails, compliance, like ongoing, leveraging
Exactly.
StackZone. That's great.
Exactly, because this is not just a one-time thing, it's not a typical
Not a one and
consultancy
done.
that,
Yeah.
exactly, that it comes and, okay, professional services come here, do the job, and yeah, perfect, everything is 100%, see you later, Yeah, 2 months on the road, oh, we created new stuff, we created new things here, a new account. Oh, we need to call the consultancy again, So the idea with StackZone is that, and I'm not going to be kind of a fool here and say that we solve everything, because that's not true. So we essentially try to fix whatever is the art of possible, and that is our aim, and sometimes some things requires manual intervention, So,
Yes.
but whatever is possible to automate and to remediate, there we are, ready to step up and to make it happen.
Nice. For those watching this right now, Fernando, how would somebody, reach out to StackZone to kind of see a demo or learn more about the product?
So it's really simple. So you just go to stackzone.com, and once you're there, we have a little bubble on the bottom right. So you just talk to us. We're 24/7, So we're happy to give you a demo and show you, what can be done and how fast and simple can be done.
Excellent. Thank you. And one thing I wanted to touch on also, what's your feedback look like with your customers? Because you're iterating on this pretty fast.
Yes, and it's great that you just asked me that because we're very much a product-led organization, so we want essentially to our roadmap to be driven by our customers and to be driven by our customers' needs. So we have a feedback page and customers essentially can put their wish list. It's like we are Santa Claus, so they just put a
There you go.
wish list and they say, I would like to monitor this. I would like StackZone to, alert me on that. And one of the things that we also have for our customers is that we invite them to our demo sessions. So basically we run different sprints for our product, and we invite customers to our demo sessions so they can have it from before our release, what they're going to be having in the next month. So it's very important for us to always, check with our customers and what we're doing and making sure that we are fulfilling their needs.
Awesome. So, as we kind of get to the end here, one other question I wanted to ask you is StackZone hiring right now?
We are. So essentially, we have a very diverse team. We're fully remote. We are in 6 countries at the moment. So essentially, we have a careers page. So again, if you head up to our website, StackZone.com, there is a careers link there, and we have different roles in different areas.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, well, I'm definitely interested in seeing a demo here in the future. Maybe we can get together again and maybe do a live stream to kind of dig into the platform, because it's quite fascinating. And I like to say, I work with customers on a daily basis, and many of the things that you have automated are very difficult to do manually. So yeah, it's really excited to see more in the future from StackZone.
Yeah, it'll be a pleasure to be here and do a demo, of course.
Awesome. And last question I'll ask is, for anybody that's watching this right now that's really has an idea and they really haven't got it off the ground yet, what kind of words of encouragement could you give to them to kind of help them on their way?
So my little piece of advice is try to always see what's going on in the industry. So my morning coffee is with the AWS news, so I typically have, to read that news page every day. And then I filter, so, but if you're not haven't started yet, again, try to go over the cloud practitioner certification. So we encourage all our people in StackZone to go on that certification, no matter if you're technical or not. Because the idea here is that you start, feeling what are these services available and what can you do in the cloud. So yes. I think it's kind of a both things here. Is trying to follow the news, trying to kind of connect the dots, and try to get on the learning process of cloud. Yeah.
That's awesome. Excellent words of wisdom. Keep a finger on the pulse and always continue to learn. Well, Fernando, thank you so much for your time today. This is an incredible interview. I'm definitely leaving feeling more inspired as well.
Thanks, Greg, and thank you everyone listening and watching.
Thank you, and all the best to StackZone. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.